Welcome to the Flex Rental Solutions webinar. Today we're going to be talking about some new features that are going to be released as part of 4.21.0. So we're hoping to release that this week. I believe we have it scheduled possibly for tonight, the last I checked. You should have gotten an email notification about that. Additionally, as part of that email notification, you should have seen a link to the release notes. And I'll go ahead and post that in the chat room right now. For those of you watching the video for later, you can see the address up here. But yeah, like I said, you should have gotten that as part of the email informing you about the release. So today we really just want to focus on a few of these new reports that we're implementing. Some of these are going to be really useful for you. And you'll notice that most of them, actually all of them that we're going to be discussing today, are going to be inventory related reports. There's still some other good new features here, mostly just speed and performance improvements. That's something we've really been focusing on over the past few releases, and of course we'll continue as we release more versions in the future, especially as we get into the HTML5 project. But like I said, today we're really just going to focus on some of these new reports. So again, these will only be available to you in 4.21.0, so unless you were given a pre-release version of that, and I don't think we did any pre-releases for anybody this time around, but if you happen to be on that version, then you might see these reports in your system, but if you are not, you're not going to see these reports just yet. So hopefully after the release of the new version tonight, I believe it could be tomorrow night, but I think it's tonight, you'll be able to see these new reports in your system. So let's just go through a few of these and talk about what these new reports are and talk about some of the ways that you can use them in your day-to-day Flex use. Let's start with the one that's at the top of the new features and enhancements list. This is the Inventory Model Contents Report. This is a really nice one for when you're trying to figure out what kind of model contents you have in some of your inventory models. And again, by model contents, what I mean is, for example, if you have an item that is like a virtual item, so let's maybe see if we have some sort of package, or just some virtual stuff. If you have an item that is a virtual item and container or model content set to yes in the inventory settings, then you'll have that contents tab on the inventory model. Now I should clarify that doesn't necessarily only mean that you can have that as part of a virtual item. You can also set model contents to yes for a serialized item, and that turns it into the preset of a serialized model with accessories. But the idea being that anything you put into this contents tab will automatically add to the quote when you add this item to a quote. So basically what this report is going to do is it's going to run every single inventory model in your system that has model container set to yes, and it's going to show what items are in the contents tab for that item. So you'll notice we have a couple options for the inventory model contents report. We have choose an inventory group, yes or no. But if I don't choose one, it's just going to run the report for all inventory models in my system. And then we can also choose whether or not to print barcodes. So let's just hit generate report without choosing an inventory group so that you can see what this report looks like when it runs all inventory models. So basically this is just showing us what the inventory model is, and it's showing us a barcode, and it gives us a nice scannable barcode too. So if you want to use this as a cheat sheet, or if you just want to quickly scan a barcode from like your calendar screen. I don't have a barcode scanner set up, but you get the idea. Just so you could quickly open that item. So let's look at this item. If we look at its settings, it's virtual, yes, and container, yes, which means model contents is set to yes. So we have a contents tab here on the model, and we have these three different items in the contents. So if we go back to our report, that's exactly what we see here. The item name, and then all of the different contents. So that's a great report to run when you want to just reference all of your different inventory models and what kind of contents or accessories are set up with them. Like I said, this is really helpful for your virtual items because a lot of times when you're setting up a virtual item, you will have model container set to yes. And so you'll add contents to that virtual item so that they automatically build on a quote. So this report is just a really good way for you to be able to reference all of those. But like I said, additionally, it will reference anything that has model content set to yes, even if that's a serialized item and not a virtual item. Let's look at the next report. And this one actually is related to the one that we were just looking at, but it's a little bit different in that this one was running all of the contents for inventory models. So again, that was just contents tab on the inventory model page. We haven't even been dealing with serial units yet, so things like containers and stuff like that. But we do have a report that is going to speak to that. It's called the Serialized Container Report. So we have some similar options here. We could either run this report just based on an inventory group. We could choose whether or not to print barcodes. And then also you can choose a location. And that's just going to be a business location that you have. So if you want to run container items with and show whatever serialized items are scanned into those container items, then you can choose it per location if you have multiple locations. But again, I'm just going to leave all of these default. I'm not going to choose any because these are optional. I don't necessarily have to choose one. Click Generate Report. And let's expand this a little bit just so we can see it better. The main difference between this report and the last one is now this is actually showing specific serialized units instead of just inventory models. So I think this is a good example to show. If we go back to our inventory model contents report, I think I saw this earlier, we had a 9x16 complete truss package. If we go back and open this in Flex, you're going to find that this is just simply a virtual item with model contents. The idea being when I drag and drop this item on a quote, it's just going to automatically add all of these inventory models as well to tell whoever's building the quote or a pull sheet that we need all these items as part of that virtual item. But then if we go back to the serialized container report, what we're looking at here is a 9x16 frame case. So this is an actual serialized unit that has items inside of it. So let's go open this in Flex just so we can see what we're looking at. I'm going to scan that barcode. So this would be the barcode that's actually on one of those cases. And this opens up Content Builder mode. And these are the contents that are currently inside of this specific case. If you're not very familiar with this idea of building containers and scanning things into containers, then I'd recommend going to our user manual or YouTube page and just reading up or watching some videos on serialized packages, serialized containers, and things like that. But that's really what we're dealing with here is an actual serialized container, serialized container that we've scanned other items into. So going back to the report, that's really all that's showing here on the report is the barcode of the actual case and then what's currently scanned inside of it. So this is a really good way if you just need to reference, let's say for example, I want to run this report, but I only want to run it for maybe my speaker cases or something, and I'm not sure exactly where those are. Maybe there's a specific group for cases. It looks like there's nothing in there, but if you have a specific group that just has your audio cases or video cases, then you can run the report just for that specific group, so it doesn't run this, what looks like 13, a dozen or so pages. Your system will probably have even more than that because I'm just in a test system where we haven't built a whole lot of these container items. But for those of you who have built a lot of these, this report might run with quite a few pages if you don't filter it by group. But again, that's just optional. So that's the serialized container report. Again, that's just showing things that are scanned inside of specific serialized container items. And again, you get the barcodes there as well so that you can easily scan them or enter them into Flex so that you can open that in Flex. Let's look at a couple other reports that we've implemented. This new one here is called the Inventory Model Report. So this one's going to be different than the Model Contents Report in that it's not going to show anything that's in that Contents tab necessarily. What this report is going to do, and again, we could choose an inventory group or print barcodes, yes or no. But what this report, every inventory model in your system, and then it's going to show the model type or the preset that is set up as. So for example, let's just grab this barcode for this speaker cable. If we open that item in Flex, go to Edit Inventory Item and look at the preset, Non-Serialized Model. And you can see that matches with what we have here in the model type. So whatever that preset is just shows up in this column. I was working with a customer over the past couple of weeks and showed them this report, and it was really helpful for them because as they set up inventory initially in Flex several years ago, they may have set some things up as non-serialized, but they maybe want them to be serialized now. So instead of having to go through all of their inventory one by one, now they can just run that report and be able to see, well, this is non-serialized, let's open this item really quick and change it. So it's a really quick, easy reference for them. Now I'm not sure if we address this with that customer, but I was going to see if we could run that as like a CSV as well so that you can sort it, but right now it looks like that's not an option. So right now it just runs as a PDF. So that's a pretty simple one. Again, the inventory model report, all it's really doing is just showing each inventory group and the items in that group and what the preset is for that particular item. Just a couple more inventory reports let's look at really quick. First, let's look at the Serialized Container Manifest report. This one functions very, very similarly to the Serialized Container report, but this one you're running for just a specific barcode. You'll notice that the barcode is required. One really cool thing about this report too is that you can use your barcode scanner if you want. Now remember, if you've set up a barcode scanner with Flex, one of the rules that you'll program into that barcode scanner is to first send that caret key, because what the caret key does, or the Shift 6 key, that's what automatically puts the cursor up into the barcode field. So that's one thing that a barcode scanner does when you program it properly. And then it sends the barcode and then it automatically hits enter. So what we did with the Serialized Container Manifest report is now you can just go to the reports menu, run it, click into this field, and then scan the actual barcode without having to reprogram your barcode scanner, because we have this option that's called remove the caret if you're doing a barcode scan. Because if you scan that from here, and I don't have my barcode scanner set up, but if I were to scan a barcode right here, it would show caret key, then the barcode, and then it would hit enter. And that's not going to give us a correct report because Flex technically doesn't have that caret key in the barcode. So that's the option there. If you're using a barcode scanner, you'd want to set that to yes so that it would remove the caret key. Now I had a barcode that I was using earlier that I'm going to run this report with. And since I just hand entered it, I'm going to put no. I don't need to remove the caret key. Then click Generate Report. And basically it's just showing the same kind of information here. But we have a little bit more extra information. If this happened to be out on a job, then it would show exactly where this particular container is. So again, it's a very similar report to the one we were just looking at, but this one is more specific to just a single item. Again, you notice as you run that report, it is required that you enter a barcode. So the last thing that we want to look at is, well, actually not quite the last thing yet. There's a couple improvements you may have noticed if you're looking at the release notes that we posted earlier. And again, if you came in late, you can find those release notes in the notification email that we sent out about the upcoming update. But there's just a couple of quick improvements too that we'll look at. Number one, the out of commission report will now have a location filter. Previously that was not there, and it would just run a report showing all items that are out of commission in your entire system. So some of our customers that have 10 plus different business locations didn't want to see all of the out of commission records. They want to filter it by a specific warehouse. And so we improved that and put that in there. Additionally, the presumed missing report, we put that location filter in there as well. And that's something that we're really focusing on a lot more, not just necessarily with the new Flex 5 HTML5 project coming out, but a lot of these things are relatively easy for us to improve and implement in the current version of Flex right now. We have two people that we work with normally, one that's full-time staff here with Flex that is able to make a lot of these customizations and these improvements. And so we've been focusing a lot on that lately and trying to improve a lot of these reports. But now the last one that we want to look at, this one's a pretty, it should be a familiar report for most of you, but we're kind of changing the way that it's going to work. So previously we had the unreturned items by manifest or unreturned items by inventory group. But what we've done is just kind of combine that into one. So now we have the unreturned items report. And then you could choose, is it by group, yes or no? And we've also added a few options. Now we could show subrentals only, and there's a location filter. So if I run this report, it's going to look very familiar to you if you've run that unreturned items by manifest report before. And of course, if I go to reports, unreturned items report, check by group yes, then that will run the version that you're somewhat used to that runs the unreturned items by inventory group instead. And then of course we have the subrentals and location filter as well. So those are just a few of the new reports that will be coming out in version 4.21.0. Like I said, a lot of them, in fact all of them, are very inventory specific, but they're really good reports that I think will give you a lot of good information as you use Flex day to day. Just as a quick review, we had the inventory model contents report. And this will show anything that's in the model contents tab. So if the inventory item is set up as model contents yes, and you put things into the model contents, that's what will show on this report. The inventory model report, which is basically just showing what the preset of each inventory model in your system is. And then the serialized container and serialized container manifest reports. The serialized container report is basically just showing any item that's set up as unit container yes, and we'll show the specific serialized unit barcode and what's inside of that unit. And then the one we just looked at, the unreturned items report, with some of those different options. If you have any questions about these new reports, then you can email support@flexrentalsolutions.com.